I hate being bipolar. It's awesome.
Think Kanye West talking about bipolar will destigmatize mental health, or is it just a PR stunt? You are listening to the Gaslit Truth Podcast. Welcome. We are your whistleblowing shrinks, Dr. Teralyn and therapist Jenn, and we're diving into the Kanye bipolar drama.
Drama is what it is. Yes. So is
Yes.
this man a genius or is
Mhm.
he off his rocker?
Yeah, it really makes you wonder, right?
Yeah.
Because the marketing tactics and the timing of everything that is coming out with Kanye West, it's kind of interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So for those of you who don't know, two things have occurred at the same time, pretty much. He took out a paid advertisement in the Wall Street Journal, which can't be cheap, by the way.
No.
And it was a letter to his fans and everyone entitled "To Those I've Hurt." And the timing is impeccable.
It's the same
Curious.
damn time as what else is going on.
He's launching an album. So
Album.
right. So,
Mhm.
Jen and I have talked about this behind the scenes, not just with Kanye, but those with the best marketing win. So,
So true.
this is another marketing, I think, another
Genius.
marketing thing. Now, maybe
Mhm.
some people don't think that that's what it is, but I think someone like him, I don't know. I don't know. I've got a lot of feelings. We're going to talk about a lot of the feelings that we have and conversations around bipolar diagnosis as
Yes.
well as
Yes, we are.
Kanye West. So we're not saying he does or does not have bipolar disorder, but I think he's actually questioning if he does or does not in this letter. It's a little bit tangential. He talks about one thing, switches to another, and then re-talks about something else. So it's not, to me, the letter isn't very linear written, and it has a lot of different ideas. And the first idea that I do want to bring up is that he starts it off with 25 years ago, he was in that car accident and he broke his jaw. And at that time, well, he had that album, and I think it was called, was it Behind the Cage or something like that? He sang with his jaw wired shut, like or the
Mhm.
Behind the Wire or something like that.
Mhm.
Anyway, he sang with his jaw wired shut for that album. But he's saying that his brain was never evaluated or assessed
For a
after
TB
such a
for a TBI.
traumatic injury, yeah,
Right.
for a
Mhm.
TBI. And I think that's an important piece of this conversation. But because that was overlooked, he went on to discover that he had bipolar disorder. And I don't know when he said he wasn't properly diagnosed with a TBI, I believe, until 2023, so a few years ago. I don't know when the bipolar diagnosis came in. I don't know from 25 years ago till now where that came in. But I think publicly we see it. We've seen him crash out multiple times
Mhm.
throughout the course of his life. So there's definitely something going on with him. There's definitely something going on. We will not diagnose him. But I think he says that medical oversight of not ever looking at his brain caused serious damage to his mental health and led to my bipolar type 1 diagnosis.
Mhm.
And I would argue that he was also on multiple medications during that time. Um, he's smoked some weed during that time. Like
Mhm.
there's things going on in his brain that may have contributed to the TBI and causing some of the symptoms that look like bipolar or can be categorized as bipolar, to be honest, because it's really just a category. Because as we were talking before, there are no tests.
Yeah, so there is no lab test, brain scan, biological test for bipolar disorder.
But there would have
Mm.
been for his goddamn TBI, by the way.
Correct. If this is the thing,
Anyway.
right? If this is the thing, right?
Mhm.
And everything that we're talking about today, we take with a little bit of grain of salt because I also believe that what we get in media is only giving us just a little bit of the truth. Things are strategically placed for certain reasons.
Yes.
And we don't really know if everything that we're reading is actually accurate or true or not. Kanye West has made a career out of being erratic, and it has worked quite well for him. So whether or
What
not
a great word,
that is
erratic.
actually who he is or not, I have no idea.
Right.
Like he could have had some like individual on his team many years ago who said, "Listen, this is working for you, so let's go with it." And he has been
Best
able to
marketing.
best marketing wins. So we don't really know. However, we can speak to the idea that a undiagnosed and unmanaged traumatic brain injury over time is
Yeah.
100%, if that is the case, going to lead to what appears to be mental health symptoms, psychosis, mania.
Right.
That is very, very real. So we could take that. We also know that according to what he has put out, he has been medicated for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Again, whether or not that's true, we don't know. But if that is true, then we can start to get curious about the idea of your brain is really now synthetically screwed from meds for
Yes.
so many years.
Well, because even if you have just your standard fare depression, often people go through multiple different medications.
Yep.
Now, people who have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it's even worse.
Yes.
So the amount of med trials and errors and just discombobulation of the brain because of what a medication does is profound and has a profound impact on the brain. So,
Right.
yes.
Right.
Mhm. Good gravy.
So
Well, I just I don't know. Like I've got a lot of feelings because I think when Jen and I were kind of discussing this last night as the topic, you were kind of pissed off by it. And I
I
was
was.
like, well, but
I was.
does it because like are we explaining behavior behind the veil of mental health so everyone now can have more sympathy or empathy for me what I
Because
did was
yeah.
erratic, but I'm
Yes.
mentally ill, so please,
Yes.
and what was the episode that you talked about, she's blatantly said she used her trauma, as a
Yeah,
manipulation. Yeah,
Hannah Stelly was on, and she talked about using her trauma to manipulate people. And
right.
we're not saying that everybody does that, but this whole Kanye thing got me a little bit worked up, and I was like, I don't even know how I'm gonna be able to talk about this because we see so much of that. We're trying to
Mhm.
destigmatize mental health.
I don't even know what that
Except
means anymore,
I don't
Jen.
remember Yosef came on the show. He goes, "What the fuck does that
What does
mean?"
that mean?
Poor Yosef. Dr. Yosef's probably the only time you ever swore was on the Gaslit Truth podcast. So we really fucking appreciate that right now.
Exactly.
But what does that even mean? Because what we just took what we just took is the idea that now that this has come out, I am bipolar, I am mania, I am hypomania, which we're gonna get into how easy it is to diagnose that, guys. We're gonna do it right here on the show.
Mhm.
Even though we're not diagnosing, but we are diagnosing. But how that becomes it becomes so easy for people, and they use it as a crutch. They use it as an excuse, and we've had many people on the show talk about this. That
Yes.
I got to be able to use that. I could manipulate people with it. And we have swung the pendulum so far now that nobody owns, yeah, I have depression, I have anxiety, I may have mania. Okay, but you don't get to use that as a fucking excuse for the rest
Right.
of your life. You don't.
I will argue that he's saying in his letter that he has followed the doctor's leads. Like
Yes.
he's done what he's supposed to do to take responsibility for himself and has
Mhm.
still come up short. And he's said that in there. Like what did he search out multiple like high-end doctors and they are all saying, well, they're all telling him he doesn't have bipolar.
They're all telling him he does not have bipolar, right? Which,
Yeah.
yeah, I
It-
mean, if there is a significant head injury that occurred in 2022, we have
Yeah.
to look at that first. You
Right.
always rule out medical stuff first. It is like so simple.
Why is this so fucking hard
don't
to be like
I don't know, but
medical stuff always comes first, and so does like addictions or even just use of
yes, always come
alcohol
first.
or drugs or
Always,
drugs,
always,
including
always.
weed. Everybody like this stuff needs to be evaluated. And we were talking about this when we look at a bipolar disorder diagnosis. It says right in there that if you are under the influence or it's got like alcohol and other drugs and whatever in here, that you
Yes.
can't give someone a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. So
Yes.
I'm just like, why are we ignoring that? And so many people, I'm talking tangentially here. So many people go into rehab, like they go into addiction rehab and they come out with a diagnosis of bipolar disorder and they are stacked with medications to help their mania and all these things based on the stories that they tell you that are happening to them in the past when they were using.
When they were
Like
using, right.
when they were using. Like
Right.
That's
Okay,
not a
so
legitimate diagnostic story, right?
so
Like,
let's talk about that. How do we
good talk.
diagnose bipolar disorder? Okay. So we have already said there's no lab test, there's no
Mm-mm.
brain scan, there's no biological test. There are no biological markers for depression, mania, hypomania. That's not a thing. So if
The
anybody
chemical
and
imbalance theory doesn't
not a thing.
exist for this
It
either,
doesn't.
guys.
It's not a thing. Okay. So the like gold standard of figuring out if someone has bipolar disorder is no different than diagnosing any other psychiatric diagnosis, okay, which is
Mhm.
we are going to do one hell of a diagnostic interview, which yeah, your diagnostic interview when you're an inpatient facility for rehab is going to be all full of all kinds of crazy back ass stories when you were using. So, but
Yes.
diagnostic interview. This is what we do to diagnose bipolar disorder. Now, this is not an all inclusive list. Okay, this is just some of the things that we would do as clinicians. One, the biggest tool is your history taking in your diagnostic interview. The second is maybe to do like a mood disorder type of questionnaire to evaluate somebody's mood. There's also something called the Hypomania Checklist-32, which we're going to be giving to Dr. Teralyn today to see how hypomanic she is. There's also like mania rating scales that you can do. One is called like the Young, I think is the name of it. This is muscle memory. I'm not entirely certain. And then like another like a Hamilton depression scale or something, right? We're looking at mood. So we're giving people a battery of assessments. And then we're doing this beautiful diagnostic interview.
Mhm.
Then, if we're actually like have the time and we're curious enough, we get collateral information. Is there any records that we can go into the past, psychiatric records, any records for like, I don't know, any like legal things that you've had going on?
Yeah.
Do you have a couple family members who are willing to sit and talk to you about this? Just so you know, guys, this whole thing would take multiple sessions to do with somebody. A psychiatrist sees you for 22 minutes in the United States and labels you. Okay.
Yeah, or even if you're inpatient and you see the
Right.
psychiatrist once or twice,
Yeah.
that's it.
This, guys, this is actually the work. A full clinical eval needs to be done by a psychologist, someone who you
Mhm.
meet with multiple times. So for
Right.
anybody out there who's got bipolar disorder and you weren't given I guess, the advantage of meeting with a clinician repeatedly over time, then
Repeatedly.
this number of evals and to do a full clinical interview, you're going to have to meet with a clinician multiple times. That clinician's got to gather collateral information. They've got to do the assessments. They've got to do an interpretation. If you didn't do all of that, your
Mhm.
bipolar diagnosis was not put on you in more of an evidence-based manner, for lack
Not
of a
to mention,
better
okay,
word.
I wanna bring in this too because when we talked about, like, alcohol and drugs and all these other things, when you're on psychiatric medications and you don't have a quote unquote "proper diagnosis," some of those psych meds can look like manic behavior, right? More depression, all of
Mhm,
these things that are still underlying medical conditions, right? That like because you're
mhm.
using a psychiatric medication or Jen going off of her psych meds would
Oh,
qualify for she diagnosed herself last night with
bipolar 1.
bipolar disorder. Yeah.
Easy. Manic.
She's got bipolar 1.
I have bipolar 1. I actually have been in full-blown manic episodes since coming off of Lexapro over the last 2 years. It has happened on 3 occasions that I can think of off the top of my
Yeah.
head.
So
100
imagine if she
100.
were to go to a doctor or go
Sure.
to a mental health therapist and talk about this stuff and not have the awareness that it's because
Mhm.
you're coming off of the Lexapro, she'd get
Yep.
a slapped on massive
Easy.
diagnosis. This would be a
Easy.
big diagnosis. Mhm.
Let's talk about the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2, and let's just spend a couple minutes on this so people have an understanding of the difference. I got out my little trusty, for those of you on YouTube, got out my little trusty
Ugh.
DSM. See that? Terry's got
Oh,
hers
there's
out
a number
too.
6 one coming out too, which I'm
Oh,
not
I
excited
can't
about, but
wait. I can't
I
wait. Okay,
know. A
let's talk
bunch of
about
old men sitting around voting on what symptoms you should have
oh
to
my
meet the
God.
criteria. That's
Let's talk
cool.
about how stupid this is. All right. So, bipolar 1 disorder, guys, came out before bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 was not introduced into the DSM until the 4th version. The 4th version came out in like 1994 or 1995. This is relevant when I'm going to talk to you about some statistics about psychiatric medication. All right. So,
Mhm.
bipolar 1, for a diagnosis of that, all right, you got to meet the criteria for a manic episode. And that manic episode may
1.
be Yeah, just one.
One.
And it could be preceded or followed by some hypomania or some major depression. All right. So that means before that manic episode, you could have had some other things like depression going on, or afterwards you could have a major depressive episode. But mania, okay. Mania has to last at least 1 week. This is the criteria. And it's got to be there every day, nearly every day, and present itself in that one way. Okay. Especially if you are hospitalized psychiatrically in an inpatient facility. Okay. That is one of the criteria that many people for mania would meet. If you're hypomanic, there's no hospital placements. We're going to talk about that. So mania could lead to that. It's got to be that like disturbing, sufficiently causing that much market impairment in your life. Okay. So for a week, you've got to have at least 3 of being inflated with your self-esteem, grandiose. You don't sleep a lot. You're super talkative. You have flighty ideas. You're racing thoughts. You're distracted. Lots of goal-oriented stuff happening. Like things like that. Okay. That's mania, guys. Okay. In 1994, in the DR5, when the DSM-4 came out, then we brought in Bipolar 2. Bipolar 2 took the criteria from Bipolar 1 from mania and went, let's expand this diagnostic category. When we expand a diagnostic category, we have expanded a medication market. Okay. Keep that
Here's
one
the
in mind.
deal. You cast a wider net, you catch more fish, and a lot of the fish don't even belong in the net. And then we can medicate all the fish.
Let's fuck those fish up with meds. So then we have Bipolar 2. Okay, so Bipolar 2 comes into play. And Bipolar 2 says, okay, you've got to have hypomania. Like for sure.
Feels like such a contradiction to me.
Yeah, I know. You got to have that. Yep. And here's the deal. The hypomania is not severe enough to cause market impairment. Because
what is the point? If you don't have market impairment, why is this a disorder? Aren't disorders because you have some impairment when you're in the process of
I mean, we have the word disorder on here. So for diagnosis of Bipolar 2, okay, you've got to meet the criteria for a current or a past hypomanic episode. And you also have to meet the criteria for a current or a past major depressive episode. So hypomania looks different, guys. Hypomania isn't lasting a whole week long like mania is. Hypomania is 4 consecutive days. 4 days where it's present nearly every day. And you only have to meet like 3 of the criteria, okay, which is similar to mania, but only 3 of these criteria for hypomania. So the criteria, guys, just so you know, is the same. The criteria for mania and hypomania is the same. It's about how many days long you have it and how much it does or does not impair your life. So hypomania isn't going to impair us. If we've got crazy ass psychosis with it, or we're going to a psych hospital, then we have Bipolar 1. Then we have mania. That's all there is to it. And the DSM actually says that, which is really, really stupid. Okay. So we have this understood. So then let's talk about how easy it can be if we expand a medication market. We've expanded a diagnostic category. We've cast the fish net out. It's out there. How do we grab people easier? After Bipolar 2 was introduced into the DSM, okay, there was a marked increase in second generation atypical antipsychotic drugs that were being prescribed. This is your Seroquels, your Abilify, your Zyprexa, okay? In the 1990s, 12% of in or outpatient psychiatric individuals, okay, were prescribed an atypical antipsychotic. By 2010, over 50% of people that were outpatient were prescribed these second generation antipsychotics.
Okay. So when did the new Bipolar 2 diagnosis, when did that come out? Give me the year.
That came out in 94. Bipolar 2 came into the DSM in 1994. Okay.
Okay.
In the
FDA
early
approved
90s.
Seroquel in 1997.
There you go. Okay. So by 2010, we went from 12% of people being prescribed these second generation antipsychotics to over 50%. All right. The mood stabilizers that used to be given when we just had Bipolar 1, right? Your lithium, your lamictals, okay? Those dropped in the 90s. About 60% of people were prescribed those. Then in 2010, now we're down to only about 25 to 26% of people being prescribed those. So those dropped because they were replaced by the Seroquels, the Abilifys, the Zyprexas. Okay. Something else to note is that throughout all of this, the antidepressants stayed about the same. So the prescribing of them stayed the same, your SSRIs, your SNRIs, even though there's a lot of information out there about being very careful in terms of giving monotherapy with just an antidepressant for someone who's bipolar, because it can actually trigger symptoms of mania or hypomania. Antidepressants stayed about the same within this category. So they were still prescribing these as well. So this is something just to be like noteworthy of when you think about this. We expanded a diagnostic category, we expanded a med market, and we introduced second gen drugs during the same time.
Yeah, so I just kind of looked up what drugs were introduced around the time that the DSM was coming out, and risperidone 1993, lamotrigine or Lamictal 1994 to 95, olanzapine 1996, and Seroquel 1997. Now we have to keep in mind that when drugs are being brought to market, they've been researching them before. So
Yes.
it's like leading in, and we know how psychiatry is influenced by big
Yes.
pharma in creating the DSM in the first place. So you cannot tell me for 1 second that the people involved in big pharma with the DSM coming out in at the same time weren't like, we've got these drugs coming out. And we're going to push the expansion of some diagnostics here so we can push these medications now.
That's just it. And when you look things up, it'll tell you online. And then by the early 2000s, the influence of pharma within the panel of members that created the DSM, that came to fruition. Everybody knew about it. It was put out publicly, right? Okay. And so, because it was happening. And so this is, to me, this is intriguing. This whole thing, I just get curious about it. Because we know that there's some influential pieces that were always happening in the background. Now, for me, I also think about, so let's talk about how easy it is then to diagnose bipolar 2. Because hypomania, guys, is a lot easier to diagnose than just mania. Okay?
I would imagine that most people have experienced 4 days of hypomania. And
So,
I want to circle back real quick to the medication piece one last little second here. So bipolar in particular is one or two is now one of those diagnoses that's like you will forever be on medication. You need it forever and ever and ever. And even when we talk about Kanye, he wrote in here that it's not just let's see. He found comfort in Reddit forums, but it said, it's not just me who ruins their entire life once a year, despite taking meds every day and being told by the so-called doctors and the best doctors in the world, I'm not bipolar. He takes meds every day, and I would argue that so many people that are diagnosed with bipolar take their meds every single day and still experience manic type episodes or depressive episodes. And so the common wisdom would be, but if they didn't take it every day, they would have it way more frequently, right? And I'm like, I don't know. Would they, or are now the meds causing some of this to happen later? So how do you evaluate whether somebody actually needs medication for the rest of their goddamn life, right? Or this was a one-time high stressful event that put them over the edge and they needed support during that time. I don't know. Nobody knows, actually. There's no answer to that question, just like there's no answer to the question, who out of the smidgen small percentage group of people that actually have antidepressants help them, who are they? How do you identify who those people are that will benefit from any of these medications? We don't know. We don't have any of that information. So everybody gets on them and you take them for a lifetime because that's the way, consumerism works. So it's fucked up, you guys. It's so messed up.
Well, and it's easy. It's easy to get. So we bring in this idea of bipolar 2. We bring in this idea of hypomania, because now you don't have to have just a manic episode. That was bipolar 1, right? So we expanded that criteria out a little bit. And so let one of the assessments that's often given to people when you're trying to look at bipolar.
Get ready. I'm
Get
getting ready.
yourself ready. Adjust yourself. I hope you put your bra on this morning because I'm going to give you the
Did not. No
Hypomania
bra. No bra.
Checklist-32.
Is that part of it? Like if you're not wearing a bra, is that considered manic
Yes.
behavior?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
absolutely. All right. Well, let's look how easy. Let's see where
Damn it.
Terry falls in this. Okay, so
Okay.
the Hypomania Symptom Checklist 32, guys. We're going to give this to Terry. She has never done this before. There is 32 questions on here. We're going to rattle through it as fast as we can for time's sake, and then we're going to talk about the results that it spits out. Again, I am not sitting here looking at how everything is normed. I don't have the book in front of me. I did not do a clinical interview for Terry. This is funsies. Okay, First question. All right.
Wait a minute. Wait. Is this like in my lifetime or is this in a certain time frame?
So I will give you that. First,
Okay.
I'll tell you in a second. How are you feeling today compared to your usual state? All right. Are you more worse than usual, worse than usual, a little worse than usual, neither, just neutral, a little better than usual, better, or much better than usual?
Better than usual.
Okay. Better than usual. All right. Compared to other people, your level of activity, your energy, your mood, not how you feel today, but on average, Terry.
Like my lifetime?
Yeah, it's just average.
It's funny. I have to compare myself to other people.
How you are on average, right? So let's see. Compared to other people, your level of activity, energy, and mood, it's always rather stable and even. It's generally higher, generally lower, or repeatedly shows periods of ups and downs.
I would say
On
it
average.
repeatedly shows periods of ups and downs.
Yep. All right. Try to remember a period when you were in a higher state. You had a higher state of being. Okay. You weren't using drugs or alcohol.
Nope.
All right. In this state, yes or no? I need less sleep.
No.
I feel more energetic and more active.
Yes.
I am more self-confident.
Yes.
I enjoy my work more.
Yes.
I am more sociable, make more phone calls, go out a little bit more,
Yes.
spend more time with people. All right. I want to travel or I do travel more. That's a big yes for you. I tend to drive faster or take more risks when I am driving.
No.
Okay. I spend more money or too much money.
No.
I take more risks in my daily life, meaning your work life and or other activities.
What's a risk?
Take more risks in your daily life. I know. How vague.
Yes.
I am more physically active. I will do more physical activity, movement, sports, things like that. Okay. I plan more
April.
Yeah. Plan more activities. I plan more projects.
Well, this is funny because actually these all would depend upon the time of year.
Okay. Well, and the question
Seasonally.
and the question I asked you is like a higher state, a period of time where you in a higher state. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yes. I have more ideas and more creative.
Yes.
All right. I'm less shy or inhibited.
No.
All right. I wear more colorful or more extravagant clothing, do more makeup, put more stuff on my face.
Yes, actually. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I could tell when you're in a good mood, you do your hair more. That's for sure. I know that one. I want to meet or actually I want to meet or I do meet more people.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyone in TikTok will know that about my hair too.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in sex or I have an increased sexual desire during this time.
No.
No, I'm more flirtatious or more sexually active.
No.
I talk more.
Yes.
I think faster.
I think clearer. Does that?
No, it says faster.
No,
so
maybe
faster.
not. No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Like your thoughts can't catch up to themselves kind of thing.
No, I think pretty fast all the time, but anyway, so that's a no.
All right. I make more jokes or more puns when I'm talking.
Yes.
Okay. I am more easily distracted.
No.
Okay. I engage in lots of new things.
No.
So vague. My thoughts jump from topic to topic.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. I do things more quickly and or more easily.
Yes.
All right.
Of course. Yes.
Yeah. I'm more impatient or I get more irritable more easily.
No.
All right. I can be exhausting or irritating for others. Steve!
I don't know, Jen.
Okay. Where's Steve? All right. Let's ask the work wife. I would say, yes, let's ask Steve. Where's Steve? All right.
Do I
can
send
tell.
more
I
memes?
Yeah. Oh, I can tell when you're on it. I can tell
Yeah,
when you're on it and when you're a little bit like in a like more higher state, right? Because your
yeah,
texts, I get way
yeah.
more texts. Like you don't finish a thought. I'll say I'm gonna do something and then you go and do it. And I'm like, well, fuck, I told her to not do it. She already fucking did it because I didn't do it
That's
fast enough.
funny.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
Mhm.
All right, we'll say yes on that one. I can
Okay.
get into more quarrels.
No,
Okay. My
I'm
mood
a
is
lover,
high.
not a
My
fighter.
mood, my mood is higher and I'm more optimistic.
Yes.
All right. I drink more coffee.
No, I'm pretty tempered with my coffee.
Yeah, you got that one dialed in. I
Mm,
smoke more cigarettes.
no, I've never
That's a
smoked.
no. Okay. I drink more alcohol.
No.
That's a no. All right. And I take more sedatives, anti-anxiety pills, stimulants, THC, any forms of like
No.
drugs at all. Okay.
No.
All right. So that was the Hypomania Checklist-32. All right. A score of 14 or higher could suggest a potential for bipolar disorder. And you should really consult with a healthcare professional. You had a 17. You have a score of a 17. In the active and the elevated subscales of this, you were at a
Yeah.
12. In the irritable, more risk taking factors, you were lower. You were down at like a 2.
Yeah.
So that's your that so just that right there, okay? And if you notice, the question was at a time when you're feeling like higher, feeling better, feeling lighter, which could be
Yeah,
like
when you're
indicative.
feeling better, do you do all
Yeah,
the things that people normally do when they feel better?
yeah. So let's see, that could be indicative of the weather and I'm
Yeah.
feeling really great. It could be indicative of I had a really great week where my nutrition and my
Yeah.
lifestyle, my exercise and shit was dialed in. It could be
Yeah.
indicative of guess what? My thyroid is
Mhm.
managed right now or
That's
not
mine, you
managed.
guys.
Not managed.
This is exactly and not even managed or not managed because my thyroid is always managed. Like it's always managed, but it still fluctuates. And
Right.
I have dialed that into myself and I know when the fluctuation happens. I'll even tell Jen, I'll be like, I'm in
Yeah.
low thyroid right now. Like I
Yep.
can feel it, I know it, and she could see it, I'm sure.
Yep. Yep.
But that is my thyroid, which is why it is so fucking important to not dismiss any underlying health
Medical
conditions you might have.
conditions. Yes.
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
because if I just went to a therapist during this time and did this thing and she
Mhm.
didn't wasn't inquisitive about thyroid, I didn't know anything about thyroid,
Yes.
having this stuff, I would probably be diagnosed with hypomania for
Yes,
sure.
easily. So
Mhm.
for 4 days, over the course of about 4 days that has been present for most of the day, right?
Mhm.
You could have an inflated self-esteem, feeling a little bit more grandiose. Maybe don't need as much sleep. For you, that's not so much of a thing. Maybe you're more talkative or you're more
That's for
social,
sure.
you're more
Mhm.
engaging. You have more ideas and
Mhm.
you're acting on those ideas. Sometimes your thoughts can be jumping around a little bit more. There's more goal directed activity. When you're on it, yes, I could be like, yes, you want to know how much output Terry puts for the Gaslit Truth podcast when she is on it? I will get like, ding, Jen, that's done. Now you do your part. Jen, that's done. You do your
Mhm.
part. Jen, that's done. You do your part.
Yep.
Yes, right. Very goal directed activity. And so these are just some of the criteria for this. And so if there's 4 days of this, it could be influenced by so many things.
4 days. Like,
4
I
days.
even think about, like, getting your period,
Mhm. Yeah.
hormones, the hormone
Yes,
fluctuation piece of all of this, or
absolutely.
even me hormonally, blah, 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 in, menopause, right? Like, so I still
Oh,
have
for
hormonal
sure.
fluctuations all the time, and that rides concurrently with my thyroid, but can you imagine, Jen, if they would offer me if I wasn't who I was and they offered me medication for bipolar 2?
Yeah.
The fuck?
Hormones make a difference. We were talking about this right before the show. This is another thing that is going to influence
Mhm.
how somebody would and that's why guys, like that's why the like full diagnostic interview is so
Mhm.
important, but there are still holes in a full diagnostic interview. Right? There are still holes in doing these assessments that we give people.
Yeah.
And this takes time. This takes multiple sessions. This takes, I mean, my gosh, think about when we had,
Notice but just notice how in that checklist, they didn't ask, "Do you have any underlying health conditions?"
right,
Why is that not asked?
right. Well, because
Or
that's what we're supposed to ask in the interview. The mood
True.
disorder questionnaire goes through the mood stuff, like the
Yeah.
rating scales go through that. The hypomania stuff goes through this. Like your diagnostic interview truly is where you get a full timeline of
That's true.
everything. But then that requires a clinician say, I need to know every medical condition you've had and when you were diagnosed. I need to know
God
every
damn, though, I gotta
Okay.
think about this because when I did all the psych evals that I ever did working in the prison, because there was a time that's
never
all
asked
I did.
never
I
asked
don't
this.
ever remember having a health-related
Nope.
thing in there, Jen,
No,
unless it was
no.
something major like cancer or
We
like
would ask
currently.
about general health conditions, but
Yes.
but here's the deal. If
I
someone would
never
have
took
said
it
to
into
you,
consideration
Terry, if
ever.
25 years ago, a client in the prison system, when we were doing all the testing, did would have said to you, well, I have hypothyroid, but it's managed with medications. You wouldn't have asked another question.
Mm-mm.
That'd have been it. That would have
No,
been it.
because that's managed over here.
It's managed, right?
It's
And so
irrelevant to what I'm
the other
doing right now.
question we never asked was, I want a timeline of every medical and psychiatric you've ever taken. I want to know what years you took them, for how long you took them, and what you took them for. I want to know when you started them and stopped them. Then I want to know what types of drugs that you did. You throw that on the timeline. Every medical condition you've had, the whole medical condition goes on the timeline.
Because now it's all just what meds are you on currently? What are you
any drugs
taking
you've ever
right
done.
now? Yeah.
Any drugs that you've ever done. I want to know all of them, and I want to put them all on a timeline. So when you get done, you have a timeline where there is a significant overlap. And then we ask about like lifestyle things going on. What were the stressors? When were the deaths? When did like you go through being abused? If you guys think about this, that type of interview takes hours and hours and hours and hours. And that's just the clinical interview.
But it took that without asking all this stuff. Like the amount of hours that go into a psych eval is amazing. And then you add in should have asked all this stuff and done all that. That would have been even longer.
I didn't even bring in collateral sources. So I didn't even bring in the idea of collateral sources. So then we look at all the collateral information that's out there, right? So for Terry and I in the prison system, we had past psych files, we had past psychological, psychiatric files. We had all their criminal history. We had to go through the entire criminal history. Like these timelines, things, I will say this confidently, things overlap. You're doing a psych med while you're doing a drug. You've got a trauma and an abuse that happened to you at the same time. You've got a psych med at the same time that you're like dealing with some poverty stricken thing in your environment. Like then you start the med, you stop the med. Then all of a sudden you have high blood pressure. So then we have a medication brought into that. This becomes a web. There's a grease board isn't big enough in the world. The size of a wall isn't big enough to start to lay out people's history. That's not how bipolar is diagnosed in the real world, people. It's not.
Clearly not.
That's what the structured clinical interview should be. But that's not how it's done.
No.
We were sold that. Psychiatrists are sold that idea. Providers are sold that idea within our education we receive on the importance of this. But in real time, that doesn't happen that way. In real time, a screener is given, a little bit of history is given, and we're going to put a medication on it. So in real time, it does make you wonder for Kanye West, what was actually all given? How much history was done? If there is a brain injury, it actually negates. If there is a true brain injury and a TBI that happened, and we do a scan of the brain and we look at what has happened, it negates every psychiatric diagnosis ever put on that man.
100%.
Gone,
100%.
guys. So you've got to think about that when it comes to these diagnoses. That's it. It's
just from my thyroid perspective, like I know when I'm in a state of hypothyroid, even when I'm medicated and the medication hasn't changed. And I will literally march my ass back to the doctor and say, I need a blood test right now. And I'm going to tell you what, especially if it prolongs, it comes back every time that it's off. Like I know that it's off. But if you think about hypothyroid, just that alone, people think about it only low mood. They don't think about it as like remitting. And also when you're on medication, it's stable. You're stable, right? And I'm like, we fluctuate all the time, like all the time. Even if you're on a medication to keep you stable, you still fluctuate. Well, as evidenced by Kanye West saying, once a year he has a massive manic episode, but he is taking meds every day. Like a medication is not a true stopping point for anybody to fluctuate with a mood, right?
Yes.
No matter what the med is, whether it's a health related med or a mental health related med. So yeah, I'm just kind of floored because I'm thinking like how many times I could have been diagnosed with bipolar 2 just because of my thyroid.
Right. Right.
Or somebody with low vitamin D, and then springtime comes and you feel better.
That right there, low vitamin D, when I look at the criteria for a major depressive episode, okay,
Yes.
because major depression is also needed within a bipolar 1 or a bipolar 2
Mhm.
diagnosis. There's like a history preceding it or following it. Okay.
Mhm.
Guys, the criteria for major depression is 5 or more symptoms that have been present within 2 weeks. Okay. And you
Yep.
got to either have a depressed mood or you've got to have a loss of interest or pleasure. Those are like the two criteria
That's
for
winter in Wisconsin, baby. Like that's
Oh
what it
my
is.
gosh. So I think about the people that we get that have like vitamin D levels of like 10 or
Yes.
15 or 20.
Oh
Their
my
D levels
God.
are taxed out. Is your mood depressed? 100%. Do you
Mhm.
have like disinterest, no longer
Yes.
interest in things? It's diminished. Like most activities, most days feel meh. You're a walking apathetic like meme.
Yes.
Like
Mhm.
meh. Okay,
Mhm.
that's that. Okay, weight loss. Even if you're not
Mm.
dieting. Yeah, okay, sure. Boy, let's talk about where that can come from other
Weight
than just a
gain.
or a
Mhm.
depressed correct. Okay. Insomnia or hypersomnia. Simple.
Yes.
Easy.
Mhm.
Fatigue. We've already hit over 5, guys. We've already hit over 5. Then there's feeling worthless or lots of guilt, can't think, can't concentrate, you're indecisive, recurrent
How many
thoughts
of
of
these do you
death.
need to have to qualify, Jen? How many of the
5.
5?
5.
And how
Yeah.
many are there in total?
9.
9. So
Yes.
half.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I
Mhm.
think about someone who's got a super low vitamin D level. Tick, 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 every one of these. We get
Yes.
clients that come to us all the time, and I'm like, okay, here, I can't even handle it. Either you go get your D tested, or I'll send you the link for the $50 to send the kit to your
To do
house.
it yourself. Exactly. Mhm.
Because guess what? That's all it might take to change that. But when you think about how
Mhm.
a clinical interview is going to diagnose someone, even like Kanye West, with major depression, okay, do you think that then clinical interview is going, okay, so during this time, this 2-week period where you were like really depressed and it's a total difference in your mood, okay, tell me about nutrition during that week. Did you have any micro or macronutrient like levels tested at all? Like, did you look at any of that? No, we
No.
don't ask those questions, guys. That's not part of the clinical interview. So yes, you absolutely can be depressed. Tell me what's going on in your life. I was
Yep.
diagnosed with major depression when I was 17 years old because my boyfriend dumped me.
Grew up
That's
with it.
my story. That's my fucking story. Major depression is on there. It had nothing to, it was an event in life, right? But yet that was it. Boom. Diagnosis. Start the SSRIs. Here we go, Jen. So it's so I'm so grossed out by
I'm so
this.
grossed out.
I'm so grossed
And
out
do you
by
guys
this
see all the
fucking
tabs
food.
she has on
I
hers?
know. For
Like,
anybody who's watched us, if you
see,
look
here's
at
the
this. I mean,
difference. I'm gonna show you the
look at
difference
that.
is
Oh my
that
God.
I have no tabs, but it also looks like I've never opened it
I know. I lived and breathed and shit
because
made this
I
thing.
didn't. Literally, I bought this for private practice because I thought I should
So
have it.
embarrassed.
And, yeah,
So
well, here's
embarrassed.
just the marks when we've tried to burn it on the top.
Yeah, yeah. That's
Yeah,
why all my top
this
tabs are all burned.
they're
That's all the
burned
top
down,
tabs.
yeah.
But
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 this is funny. Yeah.
this is what it is, guys. And so this whole episode is about, I mean, we brought Kanye West in this because he's in the news right now. How much we can trust with all of this, who the hell knows? Okay?
Right.
Right. But the idea behind this is it may be a marketing ploy.
Yep.
He may
Could be
have a
both.
genius team.
Can be more than one truth here. There
There's
can be more
multiple
than one
truths,
truth.
right?
Yes.
He
Mhm.
could actually of like be suffering from a brain head injury that happened so long ago. And there's
Yeah.
many people that listen to this show that I know have been through the same thing. I got
Mhm.
clients that have been through the same thing and they are presenting as manic or as psychotic and it ebbs and
Yeah.
flows because of a TBI. And so
Yes.
if this is real and this is part of it for Kanye West, it negates every psychiatric diagnosis that you have ever been given, guys, if we had a medical condition that was underlying this,
Mm-hmm.
then every single psychiatric diagnosis you've been given and
On.
all those meds you've been put on, those get crossed off. You got to start from
Mm-hmm.
the beginning because
Yep.
medical, and this is the one thing that clinicians are taught. That is the most important thing that we are to rule out first is a medical condition. And if it's present, guess what? And I've had many clients who come to me, they hand me
Mm-hmm.
they give me these assessments that they've had done, like 20, 30, 40-page assessments, all the diagnostic tools in the world. And I'll
Mm-hmm.
sit there and I'll read it and I'll go, but wait a minute, you told me you had a head injury before you started drinking, before your bipolar diagnosis, before you started feeling depressed. And you actually were
Mm-hmm.
actively using drugs at that same time. Some of you were too. I said, all these diagnoses you have, they don't count.
No.
I'm not going to diagnose you with that. And I've had to explain this in clinical notes because I'm like,
Well, I think that's why so
you know,
many people, when they come in, they have like 6 different diagnoses and
oh
things like
shit, more
that.
than
Like
that.
they've collected them over time because everybody has a different diagnostic impression.
Right.
You present to therapy at different phases in your life or
That's
in a
right.
different disease state in your life. You
That's
present
right.
like that. But I think there's a disconnect with therapists. Like, yes, are you supposed to ask about any health related conditions, blah, blah, blah? Yes. But what does that mean clinically to mental health then? Like, I don't
Mhm.
think that we are trained or taught to like pull that information
Mhm.
forward. It's more like, oh yeah, he's also has, a prostate issue, or oh yeah, she also has hypothyroid but managed by meds, right? Like just push that
Mhm.
on the shelf over here. Now that's irrelevant because that's being handled over here. So this is a very separate and siloed issue. And I think
Yes.
that's where the disconnect is yeah, do people ask about it? Some do, some don't. It's usually on an intake form somewhere.
Mhm.
But what is the value of that information? Like, how are we going to draw the health related stuff into the mental health world
Yes.
and not pathologize it further? You can still say, yes, okay, Terry, you have hypothyroidism. Yep. And your mood is low and it's also hypomanic sometimes. How are you going to manage that? The low mood is the problem for me. How are you going to manage that? What are your thought patterns around that? That doesn't mean that I should be diagnosed with bipolar 2. That means that I am in a state of hypothyroid. Right. And so
Mhm.
I still need to manage that as a health related thing that does impact my mental well being. But how am I going to consolidate those two things without being put on an antipsychotic
Yeah.
medication?
This is
Right.
why we see so many women that are out there now that are perimenopausal or menopausal,
Hmm.
and this is the exact thing that is happening. And instead of understanding how that medical condition
Hmm.
itself is influencing somebody's mental health,
Hmm.
we just look at putting a mental health like treatment plan of
Med.
some sort, whether it's a
Treatment plan.
med,
Yeah.
right, whether it's a
Mhm.
med that we put on it, whether it's, well, then we're going to have to get you through and do some therapy to manage like these manic states that you're having.
Mhm.
When in reality, we are talking about hormonal imbalances. Right.
Mhm.
And if a client would come to us and say, like, here's my labs that I have done, here's what my estrogen looks like in the follicular
Right.
phase, and it shouldn't. If
Right.
clinicians don't understand what that is, or you just don't even, for God's sake, get yourself on a chat bot and look up the phases of a woman's like menstrual cycle.
Yes.
There's a
Well,
luteal phase, there's a follicular phase, there's like, look it up and then look
by
up,
the
okay.
way by the way,
Yeah.
when I am in more of I'm just gonna use the terms, the hypomania stage of this of, my thyroid issue, to me, that's normal. That's who I always have been. It's when I'm in the lower areas that bothers me. The upper
Okay.
areas, like, I'm type A driven, like, this is
Yes, you
me.
are.
Like, when I'm
Yes,
in the
you are.
lower, that's what bothers me, not this. So to pathologize the hypomania part of it to me is like, that's fucked up. Like,
Mhm.
why, I would rather have strategy around when I'm feeling low. And I do, like, I need some more sleep and I need to eat better and things like that. And it does help. But to pathologize the part where I actually feel like myself is really fucked up. Like, that's who I am. That's the person that
Yes, you
I've
are.
always been.
Yeah, you are.
So to sit here and be like, here's the checklist of pathology for the person you are
Mhm.
is really bizarre to me. That's a bad thing to feel good, right? And when
Right.
I say feel good, it's not like feel amazing and I'm gonna jump out of a building like
No,
Superman.
but
It's
you're
just feel
motivated.
good. Yeah, I'm
You're
motivated. I'm doing
motivated.
stuff.
You've got higher energy. You feel
Yep.
good. You've got more
Mhm.
ideas flowing. You're hanging out with
Yeah.
people more. Like,
Yeah.
yes, you are a
Why
little
is
bit
that
more.
bad?
Yeah. What?
Why
Yeah.
is that bad?
Mhm. Right.
I especially it's written in there that it doesn't cause distress or it doesn't cause a bad thing to happen
Or
in
yeah,
your
no market
life.
impairments. You're not being
Yes,
hospitalized. You're not. No, you.
right.
Yeah, you're getting shit done. And
And
why is that such a
suddenly
bad
now we're
thing?
pathologizing uh when you feel good. What the
Right. Right.
that doesn't even make sense to me.
Oh, well, I mean, we have pathologized everyday normal experience for
Yeah.
all of these psychiatric diagnoses. That's the whole basis of why this works and why when
Mhm.
I say this works, I mean, I'm talking about like we
The
can
system.
diagnose, we can
Mhm.
medicate. Yes, this is why the system works is because we have pathologized those normal experiences, those neurospicy kids that are out there that don't fit right into the
Mhm.
the mold of what it's supposed to look like, right? We've done that. And so we've created a system that does that. And so it works. It
Mhm.
absolutely works. And I'm sure when the DSM-6 comes out, we're going to have more even expanded diagnostic categories so we can expand our like pathological and medication markets as well, right?
Yep.
That's
Oh
just
my
going to be
god,
a
so
thing.
many people are so excited about this DSM-6 coming out and I'm like, "You guys,
Mhm.
bigger nets, more payouts, and a bunch of dudes sitting around a table voting on symptoms, like, which
Mhm.
are and voting how many you have to have, like, there's
Yep.
no science behind that, there's no
There's
science
no
at all.
science. No, whether
No.
you need 4 or you need 5. Where's okay. Yep,
Or
let's get
1.
the
1
science.
out of
Let's get
6, 2 out of 6, like,
it's just a
I wouldn't
big
be surprised if they shrunk that, like, you need less to fit in a criteria of 12,
sure.
like, you need 3 now,
Yes.
to cast that diagnostic net wider. So,
Yes.
yeah, anyway. Kanye.
Okay.
Hmm.
So I think that's probably a good space for us to like wrap up because I think
Yes.
we're now we're just getting on our tangents, right? But it's nice because as we're sitting here, there's more people popping in watching, which is pretty awesome. So hopefully those
Oh.
of you that have come on get a little bit are getting curious about this kind of like discussion that we're having. Um,
Mhm.
look at your
Well, make
moderators.
sure that
Look
you
at that.
subscribe to our YouTube because that's where it's at, baby. And if you want
That is.
to, if you want to support the show, we've got some links in our bio and things like that. You can help support the show and buy some cool products at the same time. And thanks for hanging out with us on this Friday. And this is the Gaslit Truth Podcast. Send us your Gaslit Truth stories at the Gaslit Truth Podcast at gmail.com.
Thanks everybody.